Hi and welcome to my $800 PC build guide. If you haven't seen it already, I suggest taking a look at my last video, which is the $500 console killer build. This build is going to have some extras that we had to cut out of the last build. I also chose all parts from Amazon or Newegg, and prices are without rebates. The PC part picker link is in the description, so now that we have that out of the way, let's get to the build. For the processor, I went with the FX8320. Now this is a controversial choice, so let me go over the reasons why I chose this. First, I'll list some of the negatives. This FX CPU doesn't have as much of an upgrade path as the Intel socket. You can get a 9000 series, but that's just the same as overclocking this CPU. And AMD CPUs also have lower single-threaded performance compared to Intel CPUs. Now the reason why I chose it is that the FX8320 is much cheaper than an i5, and it's better than an i3. The motherboard that supports Crossfire for AM3 Plus is also cheaper than motherboards that support Crossfire on the Intel platform. So overall we save about $80, which we can use somewhere else. Speaking of motherboards, I went with the Gigabyte ATX AM3 Plus motherboard. It's a pretty good value at $66. It has 4 RAM slots so you can add more later, 6 83 ports, and it supports Crossfire for our video card. For RAM, I went with 16GB of Team Vulcan RAM. You may not have heard of these guys, but they make decent quality RAM, and at $60 it's an amazing price. For the hard drive, I chose a 2TB drive from Hitachi. Last time we went with a 1TB drive, but because we have a bigger budget, we can go with 2TB this time to store more games and files. I also added a cheap 120GB boot drive, or boot SSD, sorry, and I suggest only installing Windows and your programs like Steam, Browser, Microsoft Office, and other commonly used programs, but don't install games since they take so much space. For the video card, I chose Gigabyte R9 390. There's an XFX version for cheaper, it's about $10 cheaper, but it's a much longer card and I don't know if it'll fit in the case that we went with, so I just wanted to be sure, so I went with the Gigabyte R9 390, which is around 9 inches long. I didn't go with a 970 because the 390 performs a little bit better. It has more VRAM, which will help if you crossfire later on, and the boards that support Crossfire are much cheaper than boards that support SLI because they require less PCI Express bandwidth. So for the case, I went with the Roswell Redbone ATX. It supports ATX cases unlike the last case, which was the Fractal Core 1100, which only supported MATX. The biggest downside to this case is there's no USB 3 ports on the front, but there are USB 2 ports, so as long as you don't really need the USB 3 ports on the case, you'll be just fine. And the last item is our power supply. I chose an EVGA 600 watt bronze PSU. We could have used the same 500 watt one from the last build, but this 600 watt gives us extra room for adding more hard drives and overclocking. To show you guys what you can expect from this build, I'll put some benchmark results from Tom's Hardware. I don't want to copy their graphs, so I'll just tell you the scores and leave the link in the description. So these are all run at 1080p with the Tom's benchmark settings. GTA 5 is 78.6 average frames per second, Metro Last Light is 112 average frames per second, Tomb Raider is 90 average frames per second, Battlefield 4 is 83 average frames per second, Shadow of Mordor is 87, and Far Cry 4 is 82. Alright, so that's it for the build. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any future suggestions, please let me know. Feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a nice one.